Mission presents The Story of Miriam by Gloria Kearney. Episode 8, Plague and Blood in Egypt.
The ninth plague of darkness over the land of Egypt had caused great consternation in the palace. Pharaoh's temper rose as the long hours passed, and by the end of the third day he had had enough.
When is this abominable darkness going to end? Is the sun never going to shine again? Why can't my magicians do anything about this? Where are my advisors? Did somebody send for Hapu and Kearney? Where are they?
Your Majesty, they're on their way, but this darkness is making everything very
Don't
difficult.
talk to me about darkness. Don't you think I don't know about it, you idiot?
Sorry, Your Majesty. May you live long and prosper.
No one can prosper in this darkness. Where are my advisors?
Your Majesty, ruler of the two lands, I believe they have arrived.
Then what are you waiting for? Bring them in.
At once, Your Majesty. You may approach. Vizier Hapu and Treasure Kitty.
Bring more torches. It's still too dark in here. Then leave us and guard the door.
Your Majesty, may you live long and prosper.
Your Majesty, you summoned us. What is your wish?
My wish is to get rid of this infernal darkness. My mighty Egypt has ground to a halt. No one can see to work. We can't function anymore. You must do something about it, and quickly.
Your Majesty, we've tried everything. Sacrificed to every god we can think of, prayed to the great sun god Ra and begged him to release his light on our land again, but nothing has worked.
Your Majesty, I almost fear to suggest this to you, but there is just one thing we haven't tried yet.
Anything to have the sun shine again. What's your idea?
Well, we have noticed that there is still light in Goshen.
And we wondered if you should send for Moses.
Anything but that. This darkness is all his fault. Why would I send for him?
Your Majesty, he seems to have great power.
And his God seems to have great power too.
And the other plagues didn't stop until you sent for him.
Moses, how I hate that name. He's such a troublemaker, I can't stand him. But then I can't stand this darkness either. Okay. Send for Moses.
Your Majesty, a very strange thing. We think we saw Moses in the outer courtyard as we came in. It's almost as if he knew you were going to send for him.
More likely he's been there for the whole time and no one noticed him in this darkness. Well, what are you waiting for? Bring him in.
At once, Your Majesty. Find Moses and bring him in.
Yes, sir, at once, sir.
Your Majesty, may you live long and prosper. You sent for me.
My advisors seem to think that you can do something about this terrible darkness.
Well, my request is always the same. Yahweh, the God of the Hebrews, says, "Let my people go."
Always the same tiresome request. Well, I will grant your request. Go and worship the Lord, but leave your flocks and herds here.
No. You must provide us with animals for sacrifices and burnt offerings to the Lord our God. All our livestock must go with us too. Not a hoof can be left behind. We must choose our sacrifices for the Lord our God from among these animals. And we won't know how we are to worship the Lord until we get there.
Get out of here, I'm warning you. Never come back to see me again. The day you see my face, you will die.
Very well. I will never see your face again.
What do you mean by that? Are you threatening me?
So Pharaoh has refused once again?
Yes, I've never seen him so angry. I really feared for my life. I didn't waste any time getting out of there.
You can't go back to the palace, Moses. He will kill you.
Oh, Miriam, I have to go back, whether I live or die. God has told me he is going to strike one more blow against Pharaoh and the Egyptians. This will be the last time.
How can you be so sure? Pharaoh has refused 9 times, despite the terrible devastation wrought by the plagues. Why should this time be any different? Sometimes I think we will never be free. An enslaved workforce is too valuable to Pharaoh.
I can be sure because Yahweh has said so, and I believe what he says. And every word he has spoken to me has been true. He has told me that this time Pharaoh will be so eager to get rid of us, he will force us to leave. He has said that he has given such favour to me in the eyes of the ordinary Egyptian people. We can even ask them for articles of silver and gold to take with us, and they'll agree.
I find that somewhat difficult to believe, but I will pray for your protection.
After I go to Pharaoh, I need to speak to the people. There are preparations that need to be made so that we don't suffer the same fate as the Egyptians. God has been very specific about what we have to do, and everyone has to obey. I'm going to see Aaron now to arrange a meeting with the elders.
I will need to pray for that meeting too. The last time you met with the elders didn't turn out so well. May the God of our fathers go with you.
Moses and Aaron, I've been asked to speak to you first. As we all know, our nation has suffered terribly for many years under Pharaoh's cruel rule. We have heard your assurances that God has spoken to Moses and appointed him to lead us out of Egypt. We have seen how God has protected our people during the most recent plagues, sparing us when all of Egypt suffered.
We have listened today to the word given to you by God, that one last disaster is to come upon Egypt, and then Pharaoh will let us go. Some of us believed that further suffering would fall upon us as well as the Egyptians. There has been much discussion, sometimes heated.
But in the end, after the discussions, we have agreed to listen to the instructions you say God has for us. But may God himself punish you this day if you're deceiving us. But now, tell us how we are to prepare for our deliverance.
Nahshon, my brothers, this news gladdens my heart. May you be blessed for your obedience to the word of our great and mighty God. This is what we must all do. The entire nation of Israel must carry out these instructions in order to be spared as the angel of death passes through the land of Egypt. Go and pick out a lamb or goat for each of your families and slaughter this Passover animal. Drain the blood into a basin. Then take a bundle of hyssop branches and dip it into the blood. Brush the hyssop across the top and sides of the door frames of your houses. Then stay inside until morning. The Lord will pass through the land to strike down the Egyptians, but when he sees the blood on the top and sides of the door frame, the Lord will pass over your home.
Does Pharaoh know what you have told us?
I went to him earlier this morning. Aaron and Miriam prayed for my protection, for Pharaoh had threatened to kill me if I approached him again. God answered their prayers. I came away consumed with anger against him. Despite the prospect of losing his firstborn son and the firstborn sons of every family in the nation, along with the firstborn of all the livestock in Egypt, Pharaoh still refused to let us leave.
He has always been a cruel tyrant. Why would we expect him to change now? Only God himself can change his attitude.
Nahshon, there's a lot of work to be done before midnight. Moses has some additional details about how we are to prepare and eat the Passover meal, our final meal in Egypt, and how we are to get ready to leave. When he has passed those on to you, can you and your fellow leaders make sure that every household in Goshen is told to follow the instructions God has given?
We'll be glad to do so. Let us spread the word quickly. Our deliverance is at hand.
Our deliverance is at hand. My friends and my family.
I'm so relieved that you are safe. Our God is good. Now tell me more about this special meal. Jochebed and Amram are coming over here. Will you join us too?
Yes, we should eat this meal as a family. Has our father chosen a lamb yet?
Yes, he brought it over earlier, all ready to cook. I'll light the fire soon, so that we can cook it this evening.
Did he remember that it has to be a lamb without any defects? It must be perfect.
Yes, he examined it very carefully. Mother, greetings. Come on in.
Greetings, Father. Thank you for seeing to the lamb.
That was no problem, my son. I left the blood in a basin outside the door, as you told me to.
Good. Yes, I'll see to that later. I brought some hyssop branches.
I have made plenty of flatbread.
And I brought some bitter herbs from our house. Bitter herbs to remind us of the 430 bitter years we Hebrews have spent in Egypt. Miriam, light the fire and let's begin to cook the lamb.
The meal's almost ready. You know, Father, we're to eat a meal like this on this day every year, so that we remember our deliverance, and so that our children hear the story and remember too. It's to be a very special day in our year. Father, I think it's time to put blood on the door. Would you bring the basin to the door and I'll get the hyssop branches?
Do you think this will work, Moses? Blood on the door doesn't seem like a great protection against the angel of death.
The value's not in the blood itself, Father, but in what it represents. It's a sign to God of our obedience, and it's a sign to the angel of death that our firstborn sons are not to be touched.
Put it on liberally then, son. Make sure that God can see it.
The family prepared the meal, a meal which later became known as the Passover. And the Passover became a pivotal religious festival for Jewish people over all the world. Outside, the sky darkened. They made final preparations for departure.
Good. Are we all prepared? Dressed for travelling? Sandals on our feet? Staff in our hands? Then let's eat quickly. And eat everything. Nothing is to be left.
This feels so strange. Eating like this.
And strange too to think it may be the last time we eat in this house. Oh, I was sorry to leave my little home and all its memories of seeing my children and grandchildren play there.
Well, I will not be sorry to leave the back-breaking work and the crack of the taskmaster's whip. Let's eat and wait to see what God will do.
All over the land of Goshen that night, families ate their Passover meal and then waited behind their blood-stained doors. Few slept as darkness deepened and midnight approached. Then, from every corner of Egypt, a great cry went up.
Moses, what is that sound? It's so loud and yet so far away. I've never heard a cry like that before.
That is the sound of mothers and grandmothers, brothers and sisters grieving for the firstborn sons of Egypt. The angel of death has come.
Who could that be?
Is Moses there? You are to come at once. Pharaoh has sent for you.
I'm coming.
Hurry, hurry. The Pharaoh is in no mood to wait. I have a horse ready.
Miriam and her parents listened as the hoofbeats faded into the distance, wondering if they would ever see Moses again, wondering if all their careful plans were for nothing, wondering if their hope for deliverance was to be dashed once again. And still the cry of grieving mothers echoed through every town and city in Egypt.
In the story of Miriam by Gloria Kearney, Pharaoh was played by Hugh Finlay and Aaron by Mark Smith. Miriam was played by Candace Foster and Moses was Drew Gibson. Other parts were played by members of the Commission Radio Drama team. The play was produced in Commission Studios in Belfast by Colm Flanagan. Episode 9 is entitled Deliverance.